It's the 31st day of January, 2016, and this is the Radical Agnostic. Broadcasting from the beautiful deserts of Tucson, Arizona. My name is John. We have the stowaway guest, Brian Richter.
Hello.
And the other guest, Eddie West.
Glad to be here.
Me too. Oh, gosh. You know, Mark's not here, guys. He had a previous engagement or what have you. And our intended guest isn't here either. Pretty lame excuse, man. Something about cancer. So,
yeah, family in town, a benefit tournament for him.
Whatevs. Now, so here we are. What is this, 49 or 48? I don't know. But
are we 49ers?
Yeah, maybe.
Damn. Minor 49er, Scooby-Doo.
But we got plenty to talk about, guys. A lot of stuff going on. Eddie's stories, man. Eddie's short stories. I read Company Property.
Oh, you read another one?
Yeah.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get jealous. Now I'm going to have to go home and read at least one.
Yeah, it was good. Again, it was another good one, man. Yeah, it was kind of in the style of who's the Fahrenheit 451 guy?
Bradbury.
Yeah, it felt like that a little bit, like this.
I'll take it.
Like
I'll take it.
I would too.
Yeah.
I could write a sentence like Bradbury, not a whole story.
In that story, it was almost kind of like a future where it was almost like a 1960s version of the future. Mm-hmm. Were you going for that?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, really? Cool. Yeah. There was like tubes in the office building that people go up and down in and stuff. It's good, man. Real good stuff. So I look forward to reading more. What's it called and where do you get it?
It's called Matchmakers and Other Stories, and you can get it on Amazon's website. You know, it's through the Kindle, so it's a Kindle file.
Right. Awesome, dude.
But yeah,
I recommend it, guys. It's probably really inexpensive / free.
It's $3. It's the lowest price they'd let me set it to.
So, guys, if you just want some,
there's a high price tag on John's recommendations too. I got to tell you guys, he doesn't like me calling him an entertainment snob, but he is. So he only wants to read great books. He only wants to eat kale. All other greens pale in comparison. He only wants the best, most technically awesome fucking music. If it's not, well, he's not into your 3-chord crunchiness. He doesn't care about it.
So I think
it's coming pretty high praise.
A snob is a tough one.
It's not that he's a snob.
It works for and against you. It works for and against you.
When I don't like something that you like, that's when I'm a snob. But when you don't like something that most other people like, that's just your opinion, right? You're not being a snob.
Well, no, because
like when you told Donald, you're like, if anyone loved Star Wars, your opinion means nothing to me.
Well, no, I said it's your opinion's. That's going to be considered alongside your opinion. Not that it means nothing, but it does diminish it slightly when you're like, this is a great movie.
Why aren't you a snob then?
Well, because I'm not, because I watch a bunch of trash, too. Like, I listen to stuff that you wouldn't give the time of day to.
But you don't think it's trash, right?
No, I know it's trash. I just fucking enjoy it.
Yeah, there's some stuff you like. Like, I love Evil Dead, and it's like, oh, but it's not good.
It's shit. No, it's a shit movie, but it's awesome. Yeah. Like, it doesn't make it less. Like, the Kingsman movie, it's not a great movie, but I fucking enjoy the shit out of it.
Right. All right. But I have those too.
My mom hates when I tell people I'm white trash. You're not white trash. I'm like, Mom, yeah, I am. It's okay. Really bugs her.
She's like, you are white recycling, and you will remember
That's right,
that.
damn it.
If she ends up voting for Trump, she might have proved your point.
Right. It would.
Nah, there's some smart people out there that are supporting Trump.
No, there aren't.
If they are, they're disillusioned.
There's got to be some. And I think, if you're not a liberal and you're sick and tired of the Republican Party and the establishment spoon-feeding you candidates, you might go Trump. I mean,
if you are willing to vote for Trump, you are a bad person. Like, I'm sorry, no, whether it's because you hate the establishment, so you're going to vote for the anti-establishment character, okay. You're voting for someone that at this point the comparisons to Hitler are valid. Like, and I hesitate to do that, but he thinks putting people in camps is a good idea, wants to make a list of everyone of a specific religion, and doesn't want to let any more of them into the country.
Yeah. It's not Hitler level, but it's bad. It's U.S.
Hitler 1933.
No, it's U.S. 1933 or 1942 with the Japanese.
Well, speaking of the Japanese, aren't they doing something as far as restricting Muslims in their country?
Have.
Or okay,
they always have.
So
it's very difficult for a Muslim to.
He's not the only one. My point. I'm not in any way. Let me clarify. Supporting or defending Donald Trump. I'm just saying he's not the only one. Giving it to Muslims right now. He's not the only one holding them in suspicion.
Yeah, but are you talking about the country of Japan?
Yeah, the country of Japan. And I think it's coming.
Which is a liberal democracy.
Somebody's about to deport 80,000 of them.
Sweden is gonna. I think that's who you're talking about.
Yeah, I just read the other day, and I didn't catch the source. I just read a little blurb on it. But
well, look, guys, the radical agnostic approach to this is, hey, my heart says, let's take care of these people. 1 in a million are going to be bad. Then again, in Europe and a lot of these countries where there has been huge influx, there's been a lot of crime. There was that sexual assault
pretty rapey
in Germany.
Pretty rapey a few places.
And it's not that there's a lot of reasons for that. It's not because those fucking Muslims are bad. It's not that. It's that these are displaced people, and among them, that then you get poverty, and then you get all these other things, and some of them are just bad people, and most of them aren't. Well, but there's a lot of reasons for it. But you got to look at it fairly and say it's not good for a country economically on paper to take in
and that
tons
argument
and tons of
is
refugees.
Not. It's a little callous, but it's not a horrible argument.
Right.
Well, but the point is, if you're arguing that against this religion, and I'm someone who does think that Islam does have some inherent things, but people are not the religion. And so if you paint an entire group of people who believe in a religion with a brush, then you are being somewhat bigoted. And I'm saying that as somebody who, as an atheist, I think they're all fucking idiots. And I still say, hey, let's not sit there saying we should have lists of Muslims because, they're all dangerous.
Right.
That's too far. But
when someone tells us they're a Christian, we don't automatically think they're on board with Leviticus and killing gay people. We go, they're probably some other medium kind of Christian who doesn't like that.
I played basketball with some Muslim dudes.
Yeah.
I never thought about Sajja's going to blow me up when I come into work tomorrow.
Yeah.
It never...
So
Never
you
crossed my
can
mind.
take some of the positions Trump has and not be terrible.
Right.
But my
not
point
be
is
Hitler.
But he is comparison.
Not, bro.
No,
Eddie,
Hitler in the 30s was not talking about the final solution.
Hitler
he was just
wasn't
saying
a reality TV star. Trump is going to jig left after if he wins the nomination. He's going to be very much quieter about that sort of stuff. He'll still say some of it. If he was somehow elected to the presidency,
you think
none of that would ever pass Congress.
None of it will pass.
You
Congress.
won't be quiet, Brian. You're right. He'll just be less right wing during the general election. Everybody always moves to the other.
But his whole shtick is that he's not everybody else,
right? But he
and given the gerrymandering of the country right now, how every
I'm wondering if he's going to change his step at all, dude. I think he just keeps goose stepping the whole way.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not comparing him to Hitler 1945, but the comparison to early Hitler is a valid comparison. They are very similar.
You know what though?
But that doesn't mean he's going to go the whole way.
Here's the only thing I'm saying. I don't think that Trump believes everything that he's saying. And I think that fucking Hitler did.
Right.
Every single word of it.
Actually, about the race stuff, yeah, but about other stuff, there's one of the things it's one of the first things Christians always try to bring up because they always say Hitler was an atheist, and then you point out, that was patently false. But then you read some of his writings, and so he was at least bullshitting in some ways.
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
And again, you're right, John, when you say that to a certain extent that does end the argument. That is what Godwin's law really is. That once you bring in Hitler, it's Godwin's corollary, is that once you bring it in, the argument's over. And so I hesitate, and I hate doing it. But at the same time, I do think that there's value in saying, look, I legitimately see true parallels here, and I'm trying to be very careful about it. And not late. I'm not trying. When you say Hitler, everyone thinks camps. I'm not necessarily thinking.
And Eddie, I'm on board.
I think there's trails back and forth, but there ain't a highway.
Right. And the point being that you're also when you say a statement like there's nobody following him that's a good person or a decent or a smart person, the problem with that is you're not seeing the other appeals that he has. A lot of people hear those speeches. I've read articles quoting them who are voting for Donald Trump. Who said, "Man, I hate it when he says that Muslim stuff or he insults Mexicans." They're like, "I wish he wouldn't talk like that." But granted, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't offend them enough to send them away. But they're like, that stuff's stupid. But this guy has management experience, or I love how he's playing the media like a drum, and that's an important. If you're actually considering honestly why he's doing well, you have to bring that into it. There are people that love seeing him mess with Fox News.
I agree with that.
It's an incredible spectacle.
I'll also say that considering the argument I heard on the show for Hillary, I've heard better arguments for Trump.
Right. Well, that was Barnaby was very articulate. He's a brilliant guy, but he had a terrible argument.
Yeah, it was.
Nobody listening to it out of 100 people would be convinced by it. That's the worst part about it. It's like. He's like
it was the most articulate, hollow thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, but the thing is,
no offense to Barnaby, he's a nice guy.
You can't wash away terrible things. You know, if somebody comes in and says, "I support the idea of putting an entire class of people in camps," that should preclude them from getting your vote. Even if you hate everyone, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't think the other. But you are endorsing his policies, and you may not agree with them.
Those are liberal values that you're. So
you're saying it's not a Republican value to avoid putting people in camps?
No, I'm saying that what you just said. If you hear someone say that, you should automatically ... I'm saying if I was conservative, if I had conservative values, I'd be voting for Trump right now because of the damage he's doing to the Republican Party.
The United States government has always been cool with putting people in camps. We've been doing it. We've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, bro. It was illegal.
What the fuck is Pine Ridge?
The United States used to own people too. If somebody's in favor of owning people,
Eisenhower signed a law.
What the fuck is Pine Ridge? What the fuck is what is Rosebud? What are all these reservations? We put people in camps.
It's not good though.
No, I'm saying it's not.
It was Congress unanimously
unprecedented.
passed a bill that made it illegal, and Eisenhower signed it to be a communist in 1952. That was only in the 50s, man.
I know this kind of shit's not unprecedented. But I mean, it's been accepted in America before. It's not. When you look at our history, I think the reason people are so surprised by Trump is that they don't know our history.
Yeah, that's true.
Very true.
If you knew our history, you would be like, "Well, we fucking been here before. We're just doing it again because we don't remember our own fucking history."
I also think that a lot of the
that comes up so often to me when I hear Americans talking and I'm like, or writing, I'm like, you don't know.
You don't know what happened here. You don't know how this country was built. You don't know our history, our political history, our fucking shady history.
How democratic socialism helped us emerge from the Depression and become the leading world. After World War I, we were number 18 in the world in terms of power. That was even after we had just rocked a world war. We were 18. Before that, we were a very small, insignificant country in terms of military and economy. After that, and then after World War II, we're by far number one. Like that was partly the result of democratic socialist policies where the government is used by the people to make everyone's life better via broad policies and the distribution of wealth reasonably applied.
The corporations were actually taxed.
Yeah.
They actually had to pay some fucking taxes.
Post-war period, they paid it was like 30% of the budget was paid for by corporate taxes. Now it's like 1% or something.
If that.
Yeah.
Speaking of democratic socialism, though, I watched this thing this morning that you've probably seen, and it's your boy Bernie trashing Alan Greenspan to his face.
Yeah, that was awesome, dude.
Dude, and I'll say this: if I've heard a lot of people talk shit about Bernie Sanders and this and that, but the funny thing to me is that all those people that have talked shit about him have been working class people, middle class, working class people. And I dare you to listen to that 3 minutes that he goes at Alan Greenspan, and you tell me any other politician is down there throwing punches for you, the middle class, like that fucking dude is.
Well, I think a lot of...
And has been for so long, dude. Regardless of what
You just find...
The enemies...
Go listen to that, and you tell me that he's not trying for the middle class.
And then ask yourself, what's the most dangerous enemy you ever made in your life? It's not Alan Greenspan, I'll tell you that. It wasn't that dangerous. When you make enemies in the gun lobby, in the insurance lobby, in the finance, high finance, those are the power holders of this planet, is high finance, the banking industry. It puts everyone else to shame.
Money.
And lots of it.
The root of all evil, right? Isn't that what it's...
Love of money. Yeah, the root of all evil.
That's the handle it got, right? The root of all evil?
Yeah. It's an old Christian... Or maybe Mark Twain said it.
I do think
what's the difference?
Seeing the response to Bernie, this sort of knee jerk to a certain extent response, and to
on which side?
From people who don't like him, because I do think there are some liberals who also have a knee jerk against the idea of socialism, even though they're liberals.
They're called Hillary voters.
And it's funny because I think back to the smartest joke Bill Maher ever made when he was talking about trickle down economics. They basically said, we're pissing on you and you can keep what you catch.
Right.
Yeah. And policies that sound good on paper, that sound in principle. Well, a lot of libertarian things are like this. They sound good in principle. When I describe it in isolation, it sounds
or okay. Anarchist thing.
It makes sense.
Yep.
But the problem is where they have been tried, they have not worked. It's like when you think of right to work states. As a concept, a right to work state is a state where you have the right to not have to join a union. Well, that sounds good. You shouldn't have to join a union. Fuck that. Why should you have to join something you don't like?
Right.
But then you look at there are right-to-work states and there are non-right-to-work states. And literally every metric that I know of is worse in the right-to-work states. Demonstrably worse.
Sitting in the middle of one.
And it's like, yeah. You're much more likely to die. You're much less likely to get paid. Your benefits are going to be worse. There's nothing about working there that makes work better. There's no element of your life that is improved by this system. And I'm a big fan of principles, but I always look at these things and I'm like, yeah, but the idea of government is that we're all things should be to some extent better, and then you have to look at is this worth? There are certain freedoms that you do give up because they aren't worth the cost,
the juice is worth the squeeze.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the freedom to not join a union at some specific job. It's like, well, you're not required to work at that. That's a relatively small freedom. It's true. It's a freedom, but when you really think about it, it's like, wow, having this freedom makes life worse in every way.
Yeah.
And yet people are like, right to work, man, fuck those unions. And I'm always like, but upon what grounds do you think that?
Right.
And same thing with Bernie and stuff. When people have this knee jerk against ideas like socialism and wealth distribution,
universal health
it is true that there are countries that have gone very badly with that. Do not get me wrong.
Well, but when you say socialism, it's democratic socialism is different than than just straight out socialism.
By a long shot,
it still supports capitalism.
Well, the problem though is
not everything's the property of the state. It still supports that,
right? But the problem is.
And we know this because it's worked before in our country.
Social security, the minimum wage.
Communist and socialist states, government, countries, I guess would be a better way to say it than just states, have always, the United Soviet Socialist Republic. They didn't call themselves communists. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
Yeah, just like races don't call themselves
They claim to be
racist.
democratic socialists. And they're clearly not, but then if you bring up, you got that name recognition problem.
Right.
But generally speaking, if you're going to lean one way or another, everyone's life is better under a more socialist than not system. Now, going too far, any extreme is generally bad.
Yeah.
You can drink 47 gallons of water and kill yourself.
If you completely crush the free market, then you have bureaucrats who are making decisions about economic things that
they don't know anything about.
But you
can't control. Markets are weird. If you try to control everything, then inflation can go out of through the roof. So you need
I don't understand.
You need
economics.
to let the whole idea is just a healthy balance. It's let there be a free market to some extent, and then cap the ability of those companies to grow and control the government itself.
And you say that because that is demonstrated to make things better. Not just there's a principle there, but there are some people who reject certain principles under socialism. Why do I have to give a fuck about other people? It's fair enough. That's a fair point.
Yep.
I got mine. I don't want to have to help anyone else. It's a fair point to say, philosophically, you may not be in favor of that, but but a government's purpose is, as a society, we form governments and such to make all of our lives better. So you need to be working against the notion that, you don't have to care, but the point is, things are worse under this idea you are positing, so you should have to work against it. But far too often it's, I'm just talking about principles. It's
well, yeah, and they usually start from first principles, and they say it's wrong to force someone to do something. The initiation of the use of force is morally wrong. That's the anarchist rallying cry.
The non-aggression principle, the NAP.
That's it. And every form of taxes, every law, that's the initiation of the use of force against citizens, so it's all wrong. It's all morally wrong to have any such laws of any kind, even if they're voted on by the people.
But the idea of letting somebody just bow out of the country completely is nonsense. It's just nonsense. There, in this country, we have this idea of bootstrapping. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But then if you look at all the people who supposedly have done that, some have to a certain extent, but all of them used public roads, all of them used public education, and most of them used things like $1 million loans from their dad. A small loan.
But they would just say, if you lived during slavery times and you benefited inadvertently in any way from that, that argument could be used against you as supporting slavery or anything else. That's what they say. They go, yeah, I live in this society. Yeah, I have to pay taxes and I use the roads and stuff, but I was literally forced into that position.
And that's true. Birth. No, that's 100% true that they are forced in that position. But we come back to Brian's point, is the juice worth the squeeze? In the case of slavery, that juice is just not worth that squeeze. It just isn't. There's no argument that I've ever seen that could really seriously justify slavery.
Right.
William Lane Craig tries because he's fucking insane and dishonest. But beyond him, there's not a lot of people trying to justify slavery. But when you start talking about like slight changes to government systems, people who want to pull us back libertarian, like every time you pull us that way, things are demonstrably worse. So you should be arguing, yeah, things are worse, but it's okay anyway?
If you weaken the government, something else fills in the power vacuum, and it's a private entity, either a billionaire or a corporation with billions of dollars. Someone will fill in that power. So, yes, government is the use of force against us all. Sure, I know. And a lot of times it's completely unjust, and there has to be a lot of checks on that. Cops, politicians, everyone. Got to be checks. But at least you have this vote, this vote that's been kind of taken away from us gradually, but it's still there. At least you can, in principle, and your fellow people influence the direction that power is used by the government. You have no say in how a corporation or a multinational conglomerate uses their power, and you never will.
I look at arbitration systems. There are arbitration systems in this country right now that are close to what the libertarians and anarchist libertarians want. No courts, just arbitration. People, the best arbitration system is just going to stay the best. And if it gets worse, people will move away from it. And I'm like, well, no. Because once they amass the power, once one of the arbitration systems becomes the one, then all the corporations use it, and then you're forced to use it, and then they don't have to give a fuck anymore.
Right.
And that's the problem. Government generally doesn't have to give a fuck to a certain extent, but fundamentally we have that vote. When you've got private entities doing this, when they reach that we don't have to give a fuck point, there's never a way to pull it back except through essentially revolution.
Yeah.
Brian, a couple of weeks ago, you were talking about a voting revolution. It is still possible. We can discuss the merits of various systems of it, but it is true that votes do matter to a certain extent. Certainly, as a fact, if as many people as would be required for a physical revolution, a violent revolution, could vote to change things.
Right.
That's my whole point. If you want everybody, I hear people talking about, we're coming towards a civil war. Well, why not just go vote, asshole? 2/3 of you don't vote, and I guarantee you, some of you idiots talking about a civil war are in that 2/3. So go vote instead. You have a revolution without fucking firing a shot. Nobody gets hurt. Yeah. And you use the process that's already established.
You're talking about dedicating your life and maybe giving your life in an armed revolution.
Yeah.
But
why not just show up at the high school on fucking Tuesday and vote, dude? Stand in line for an hour. Don't get shot at.
You don't even have to. In a lot of states these days, you can mail in your fucking vote.
But I'm saying,
I voted in every election.
Even if you have to stand in the rain for an hour and wait to vote, it's better than giving your life for a fucking... something you could vote on instead.
I agree. So these are kind of related things. You guys remember the rapper Mos Def?
Mos Def? Yeah, I do.
No?
No, I do. I went, uh-oh.
He changed his name to something Middle Eastern sounding, something Bay. I could just look at it, but too lazy. He got arrested in South Africa for using a world passport, and...
Oh, that's unfortunate. That's like when you hear about how Wesley Snipes got arrested for tax evasion because he thought he could just not pay taxes because sovereign citizen or something.
Yeah, someone on the internet told him he could. These.
Well, in Wesley Snipes' case, he actually had an accountant, an actual who.
Well,
then was
this
arrested.
Is real too. So in 1950,
define real.
In 1954, Gary Davis, a World War II bomber turned peace activist, renounced his American citizenship and founded the World Service Authority. And it's this thing called the WSA where he distributes world passports. I'm using air quotes. And it's like they give you a photo ID and everything. And he has lawyers that on staff that, well, he's dead, but they have teams of lawyers who say, well, this is kind of technically should be legal according to the UN Charter and all these other, international laws. So
where's Mos Def kicking it now?
Well, he was in he was going to South Africa, so they arrested him. So I guess he's either there or they're extraditing him here to face a trial. I'm sure he's still there, actually, to face a trial. So, but he's like, nah, man, this is like a world passport. I can use this because hundreds of thousands of them have been printed or sold or whatever over the years. And a lot of people have used them successfully. The guy at the customs will just look at it and be like, all right, I've been stamping shit all day. Just go in. That's what happened when I went to Scotland, right? I moved to Scotland to go to grad school when I was, I don't know, in like 2001 or something. And I get there. You know how disorganized especially how I used to be. Like,
oh, yeah.
I got there and I come up to the customs guy, the podium, like just getting off the plane. He's like, right, passport. And I showed it to him. He's like, where's your visa? And I'm like, he's like, you need a visa to come in here. I'm like, yeah, here's my letter of acceptance to the school, and I'm going to school here, and I didn't know that I had to get a visa. And he's like, yeah, mate, you need a student visa. He's like, well, right. Just stamps it. He goes, just go in. He goes, this is good for 6 months, and then you got to get that visa to get this renewed. So I went in. He just let me into the country. And then I went traveling to like Spain or something. You can get like a $50 flight to go to Europe. And they have to, and my little stamp was still good. So every time, in other words, I would go traveling out of Scotland, they would hit me with another 6-month stamp because they had to, because my stamp was still good, so I'm legal. And that's the least thing they can do is give you this little stick. So I kept extending it, never got a visa. The whole time I was there, I was on these 6-month stamps.
That's righteous, man.
Yeah, so anyway, that world passport thing.
I'm going to have to look that up because I don't know much about the world passport. It makes me think of Sealand. Do you guys know about Sealand?
Yeah, the country on a barge or something out in the ocean.
Well, okay. So during World War II, during fears of attack by, and I don't know where in the ocean this is, so, but as part of fears of attack by the ocean by the Germans, somewhere near England, there are these barges that they're like permanently anchored. Like, so it's basically like it's concrete. A big concrete fucking thing. And after the war, they just kind of abandoned it because who gives a fuck? And it's not like it's going anywhere, right? Yeah. But the problem is it's a landmass. It's above the water. Like it's a thing. And so no one was on it because the government didn't care because there's nothing on it. It's just this concrete big thing. I don't know what it looks like, but it's just, and so
it's like a platform, but there's some structures on it too.
Like but like I think there's just very basic structures. It's just like
there's no windows,
a concrete bunker.
Exactly.
But and so these people moved on to it and said, well, we claim it. And technically, based on international law, it's outside of the territorial waters of England.
Yeah.
During wartime, it was at their place that they were like, this is where we're going to kind of create a zone to try to keep the Nazis out.
There's no laws during wartime. Countries are just like, I own the ocean.
All that shit's off the board.
Yeah, it was just...
Well, I mean, this is also a time period when there are U-boats sinking ships. Like, so it's not like people were worried, So I don't think they were necessarily trying to claim it as their water, as just make up, like, this is just a ship that's not going to move. And so they moved on to it and were like, well, nobody's here, so this is ours now.
Who?
I don't know their names. I don't know
some guy.
Some guy.
Wealthy guy.
Clearly.
It's not even that wealthy.
They're Sealanders.
Yeah, they are.
Well, no, they said we're outside of Britain's territorial waters, so this is international waters, an unclaimed land mass because it's permanently anchored. So now it's the island of Sealand, and we're going to start like giving out passports. And
first thing they did was make a flag.
First thing they did, of course. Yeah, that's the first thing.
Well, there's some dude out there like, fuck you, U.S. Army. I am an army of one.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah,
Sealand.
Since there's only 8 of us.
Although really, aren't they a navy of one?
Yeah, I'm a Navy Sealander.
I'm the commander in chief.
A Navy SEAL.
It's kind of like Zoolander. In that it's funny, but it's
Cold Steel.
But it's a little more serious.
You guys have heard of citizen's arrest, right? We've all heard of that. Mm-hmm. Like a year ago,
good luck with that.
I was like, I looked it up, and I was like, all right, what is this? Is this a thing? And then I looked it up again today, and it is, man. Like in most countries, it's on the books, in the laws, that private citizens can arrest people.
Now, do keep in mind though that what the law allows for is detaining.
Yeah.
So you can't you have to stand in essentially the same place. You can't take them anywhere. You can't even take them to the police station.
Yeah, then it's kidnapping.
Then it's kidnapping.
Right.
So you can detain them and call the cops, but you can't go anywhere with them.
And a lot of places have
it's
laws
usually felony. You have to
where
witness a felony in this state, if I recollect.
In some places it's felonies. In some places like California, you can do it with misdemeanors and stuff. And but a lot of times the law is you have to be right that the person committed the crime. If it ends up that they didn't,
you're in trouble.
You're in trouble for false imprisonment, kidnapping, false arrest.
It's real bad.
Not good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which are, like, I think all felonies.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't expect to get a good job if that all goes through.
But just so everyone knows out there, like, you are allowed under the law to arrest people and detain, which means physically detaining, like hold them down and until a cop shows up and then processes the arrest on your behalf. You can even tell the cop, like, I want you to, you're just my lackey there, officer.
Yeah, it's going to get over well.
Facilitate this arrest for me, please. Just shuffle off there and do the paperwork, officer.
Oh,
so it is
which that makes me think of a guiding principle of my life and how I interact with other people. You know, I try not to be an arrogant dick. Unfortunately, I have this natural handicap where I just am. But you know, I deal with my disability as best I can by saying
you're not nearly as bad as you think you are. Right?
But I deal with it. You can be arrogant as long as you're right. So if somebody's being arrogant to me, I don't get mad if they're 100% right. You know what? If they're arrogantly telling me something that I should have known and I'm wrong, well, okay. But as soon as they're wrong, it's like, oh, now I'm going to be a dick because you shouldn't have been a dick.
I was saving up.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah. The only thing is that I don't know if you've tried that approach with law enforcement very often, but I can tell you from experience that it doesn't work that way.
It depends. Well, see, you can be arrogant. But you have to still be polite.
So bad.
But you can kiss ass in an arrogant way. Like I actually have a story about I got pulled over once for passing a bus where in a no passing zone. Except it was I was on my bike and where the bus had pulled over, it was right near where the left turn lane starts. So he pulls me over. Do you know why I pulled you over? I'm like, no, officer, you know, I'm not sure because like I don't know, maybe I did something else. He's like, you're not allowed to pass here. See, there's only 2 lanes. You can't pass there. And I'm like, okay, officer, because I was under the impression that where there's a third lane, like see that little space right there where the left-hand turn lane is, but then it stops being a left-hand turn lane and then there's a yellow section. I was under the impression that was perfectly legal to pass the bus. Are you telling me that that's not legal? He looked at it, looked back at me, and went, I'll just let you have a warning this time. Got back in his car and left.
Yeah, I had to tell a cop he was wrong once, too. I was at a red light at an intersection in the middle of the night after getting off of a night job. And it was a weird light where 3 of the lights would be red at a time, and 1 would turn green, basically. Let's put it that way. So mine, he was across from me, pointed at me, across the intersection. Mine was green, his was still red. So I went, drove past him, woo, pulled me over. He's like, you just ran a red light. And I was like, no, it was green. And he goes, no, it wasn't, couldn't be. Mine was red. And I'm like, because I do this route every night. And I'm like, I know, it's weird. This is an intersection where 1 is green and the other one isn't. I don't know what to tell you it is. I promise. And I was like, can you radio in and ask, like, the dispatcher if you can look up the map of traffic lights? Like, because that's...
Is that what they did?
I don't know. I don't think so. But he went back to his car for half an hour. You know how they do. And then he came back and he was like, he told me I had you have 12 potential fines here for other stuff, but I'm going to let you go and everything. So I guess he found out that I was right.
I got a funny story about being pulled over. I wasn't right. I'm driving down to Sierra Vista and this guy, he's one of those assholes that's going to do 50 and a 55 until you have that short ass passing section, and then when you go to pass him, he fucking speeds up. It's this guy. So I fucking stomp it. I'm driving a Camaro. Like, I'm gonna get around you, bro. So by the time I do get around the asshole, I'm past the passing zone. I'm in a no passing zone. I'm coming up a hill. I'm doing about 90 and a 55, and a highway patrolman has to veer off the road and onto the shoulder to avoid a head-on with me while I'm passing. So I just pull over immediately. I don't even try to run. I just pull over the side. I got all my stuff out. I got my hands on the wheel, and he pulls up behind me. He comes up over the hill. He pulls up behind me. He comes walking up like super cautiously, and I'm like, "Hello, officer." and he's like, "Did you pull over to wait for me?" And I'm like, "Yeah." yes, I did. I'm like, I figured you were going to pull me over for that whole thing back there. And I just didn't want to make things worse. And he's like, all right, man. All right. And he's like, insurance, registration, all that. I'm like, right here, ready to go, man. Any weapons in the car? I'm like, nope. Anything else in the car? I'm like, nope. So he goes back to his car for a minute, and then he comes back, and he's like, I've been working this road for 20 years, man. He's like, I have never had anyone pull over and wait for me. He's like, I don't. He's like, step out of the car for a minute. So I get out, and I have, it's a black shirt, brand new, and it doesn't have a big picture on it, but at the bottom of the shirt, there's just a bright green pot leaf right in the front.
Oh my God.
And he looks down at it, and he starts laughing. He's like, man, this just keeps getting better. He's like, you don't have any weed in the car? And I'm like, no, sir, not driving like that. And he like that made him laugh just like that. He's like, all right, man. He's like, I'm going to give you a warning. He's like, try not to run the next cop you see off the road. Like, maybe don't do that. So there's a lot to be said for not being a fucking dickhead.
I personally believe
when you are out of line.
Even when you're not, at least have the fucking courtesy. I mean, their job sucks.
Yeah.
On a day, granted, I'm very, very white.
Yeah.
So like, I do have that difference but like, I have always had so much luck by just being fucking polite, and I've never had to, like, I've had asshole cops. Don't get me wrong.
I have a theory that you would think that if a cop pulled someone over and they had a gun, not using it or anything, not touching it, but the cop would get a little bit amped up, right? A little more on point. I have a theory that if you have a gun and immediately tell them about it and where it is, you're better off than if you had no gun at all. In the cop's eyes, you're more likely to be
anything you
to
can
get away
do
with it,
to kind of show that you're not an asshole.
Yeah. You're like, look, I had the power to maybe start a shootout with you, but I have no intention, and I want you to take the gun out of my car and
I don't even think it's that. I think it's right along the lines of Brian's pulling over, like he knows how wrong he is, and that I'm about to get fucked, so I'm gonna keep lube myself up for you. Like, so it's not even I had the power to shoot you. It's I had the power to make this unpleasant. And I did not. Not even going that far.
Yeah.
Well, just because if you're getting out of the car and he looks down and sees there's a gun beside you, like things are very different. Yeah. I always tell him. I always do.
Too.
Hey, I got a gun in the car.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, all right, where is it? I'm like, right here.
I do remember one time I got pulled over.
You don't say firearm because like gun in that scenario can be such a hot word. It's better to say firearm.
I just always say I got a gun in the car. I'm like, it
almost sounds like
weapon.
If the tone is wrong,
I have a weapon. I have a weapon. I'm like, I have a weapon in the car. I'm like, it's right here.
I say firearm because cops love that.
I've actually never been pulled over while I have a firearm in the car. What do you do, Brian? Like, honestly.
I always have a firearm in the car. I'm not fucking around.
Put your hands on the wheel and you tell them.
I just keep my hands on the wheel.
I feel like what I would do is be like, can I get out and point to it and you take it? Because I really don't want to be involved.
They're on top of how
I'm going to be a huge pussy about me having a gun.
They don't want you to get out.
It's almost like anything else. Fair enough. You just like, I'm like, I got a weapon right here, and then you let him tell you what to do.
Right.
Because he'll tell you what to do.
Yep.
He's like, all right, why don't you keep your hands on the wheel? I'm just going to open the door and have you step out. Or he's like, why don't you hand that to me? And I'm like, okay, here you go. Yeah. Like, that's the two things they've asked. Yeah. They've asked me to do. Yeah. Either he's like, just keep your hands on the wheel. I'm going to open your car door. You're going to step out.
My mom was visiting Tucson one time, and we were driving around, and I get pulled over. And I was like, what the hell did I do? And the guy comes up, and he goes, do you have a firearm in the car? This is the first thing he said. And I was like, no. And he goes, all right. He goes back to the car, his car. Then he comes back and he goes, all right, this you didn't do anything wrong. This was a training exercise, so you're free to go. So he had like another cop with him, or he was the trainee, I don't know. And they like looked me up when they ran my license. They saw that previously I had declared a gun in the car, I guess, and then just pulled me over at random and asked me that. It was very odd.
Yeah.
So I question whether they had a report of something like a white car, and it was
my license plate attached to my license plate. There might be a little note, right, in their system. Had a gun in the car? No, cops don't log that stuff.
Could it not? Not in such a way that like their spots doesn't. It doesn't really. Not normally, no. I mean, I'm sure they could.
Unless something happened from it, like there were charges filed. I don't see that it would even really.
No, but it could. Like let's give the paranoids their due and say they could, but generally speaking, they don't. My guess would be that maybe it was a white car with like, a a blonde-haired guy, and they pulled you over and went, okay, it's not him, but we don't want to tell him we're looking for somebody because this is some kind of
Our buddy Justin ended up in jail for a while on being misidentified. And he's like, when they caught the guy, the detective felt pretty bad because they'd had me in jail for a while and I wasn't the guy that fucking did it.
Right.
But he's like, when he showed me the guy's picture, and I'm like, damn, dude. He's like,
you sure it isn't me?
I know. He's like, God damn, that guy really does look like me. He's like, so you can see, he's like, it was a really honest mistake by the witness and by us.
Yeah.
Like, you fucking look like, we thought you were using somebody else's name. Like,
so this armed occupation in Oregon of the federal building has had some very interesting and tragic.
It's not ending well.
Developments, yeah. So a bunch of them, including the leaders, left the facility to go to some town hall rally, so they were free to go in and out. Had been free the whole time, and the FBI pulled them over on the road and arrested the leaders, and then the Finicum guy, after being pulled over, blasted, hit the gas on a snowy road, and ran away from the cops, and then hit a snowbank where they had a what's it called, a roadblock?
A roadblock.
And he saw the roadblock, veered into the snowbank, slammed on the gas. He thought maybe my Dodge whatever can get through this bank.
The snowbank was taller than your truck, dude.
He must have. That must have been an impact for him. He was flooring it, and then went into that snow. And I mean, he came within a millimeter of an FBI agent who was standing in the snow. You saw that, right?
It seemed like the guy ran out into the way of the truck. I thought I saw him moving into the way of the truck.
Yeah. Maybe he thought the guy was going to smash into the vehicles.
Well, did you read the comments below it? Because guys are like, so they have a guy run out to take one for the team, so they're authorized to use legal force.
Oh, Jesus!
And I'm like, God damn, you guys will, like, any little thing you guys will bite on. But did you find it weird
the video
that the guy
means nothing? Like you can release videos of anything, and people who've already made up their mind, it doesn't prove anything.
You know what weirds me out about the whole thing? I've heard people say he was reaching down because he got shot. He was reaching down for a gun.
Yeah.
Was it weird to you that a dude came out of the trees and shot him?
Yeah, it was weird.
A dude came out of the trees and shot him.
Well, if they had a roadblock there, I suppose they thought, if this goes awry, the guy might try to run off into the woods.
Doesn't seem a little bit weird to you that there was a dude in the trees?
Weird in what way?
It's an FBI.
I would imagine.
Well, no, because it was Oregon State Police. OSP fired the shots, is what I heard.
But what
kind of... the FBI drone footage, but that was Oregon State Police that fired the shots.
I thought the black SUVs were Oregon cops.
Well, I don't know, but now maybe I haven't read more recent articles, but what I heard was that OSP fired the shots.
Okay. And the guy that came out of the woods seems to be the guy who shot him. He definitely had his gun extended in one hand.
But
so did the
guy lower.
Guys.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can't tell from that angle, like, who actually fired the shot. To me, I can't.
No. Can't. There's no flash. There's no indication.
No. But I was like, why was there a dude way up in the trees?
That is weird. That is weird. Maybe he was peeing. I don't know. Honestly,
well, I would imagine there'd be I don't find it hard to believe that there'd be a sniper.
Really?
Well, he wasn't a sniper.
Unless he
left his rifle back.
No, I don't know, but a guy in the trees doesn't shock me.
It just seems kind of weird.
If you can get the high ground, why wouldn't you?
Well, but there's no, like,
it was
why would you decide to put a guy up there?
As opposed to what?
This isn't a military ambush, bro. This is a police roadblock.
Every police force in this there's SWAT teams in every police force.
But what I'm saying to you is I don't think they had any reason to believe, really, considering what had happened so far, that these guys were going to put up a huge fucking fight like that.
Well, and that's the problem you're having.
Well, no.
No.
And they might have...
The response of the police in a militarized fashion does not have to do with the actual level of threat. And I'm not even saying, like, the shooting parts, because you can always have a debate about that.
But all I'm saying is that this guy wasn't a militarized... He didn't have a fucking rifle, dude. He came out with a pistol. What the fuck was he doing?
Well, then so I don't know. I don't know enough about that. Maybe, but I'm just saying it doesn't shock me to have something.
Obviously, those cops in the roadblock knew that he was running.
Yeah, now that's true because he was on that road. I watched that video for a while,
and they had pulled him over, and so
maybe they put a dude up there like in case he tries to get around.
They go, he's coming at you. He doesn't want to be caught. So maybe they thought maybe he'll go into the snowbank or.
But as far up as he was, and they had to have scouted that. It's just a little weird.
It is.
That's the only thing about the video that I'm like, why was that dude up there?
Yeah, I don't know, but he definitely came out with his hands up and then was walking around, which is a big no-no. They're telling you stop. I guarantee they were screaming stop.
I saw him reach down at least twice before he went down.
Yes. And then they say he had a loaded gun in that pocket. I guess we'll never know if that's true, but
it's also irrelevant.
He also said, I'd rather die than be put in a cage.
It's irrelevant whether somebody actually had a weapon unless there's reason to know whether the police officer
I'm not saying it was a bad shoot, but I'm also saying that things like that don't make sense. Okay, this is a dude who always, like, he was a firearms enthusiast, and people who are firearms enthusiasts and have a little bit of training know certain little things, like you don't keep guns in pockets. It's not where guns go.
Yeah, but this
in a pocket of a jacket.
This is the highest stress situation of this man's life.
Yeah, but he in every other picture, he's has all his weapons properly holstered. They're always slung well. They're in a safe method of carry, and that's not a pocket.
Right.
Like, things like that just don't make sense to me. So maybe old Lavoie was crazy. Maybe he wanted to be a martyr. I don't know why you get out of the truck and run around like that.
Yeah,
not if you don't want to get shot.
Why do you leave your home thousands of miles away and sit in a chair with a tarp on you because of some Bundy Ranch you got to be a little off in the first place. Like, I know a lot of these guys believe in their militia type thing,
right?
And they're not all crazy or anything like Trump supporters. There's some smart people in there, but
I say these guys are a little bit.
Well, his whole statement was, I just want to go back to feed my chickens and milk my cows.
Well,
and I'm like, who's doing that right now?
Nobody fucking told you to come up here, bro.
Yeah.
The dudes you're supposedly supporting didn't ask you to come up here.
Yeah, he pretty much wanted to be a martyr.
What the fuck was your point anyway? You came up to take a bird sanctuary? Now, I will say that...
The other thing is, if it was a conspiracy and they murdered him, why didn't they murder everyone else in that truck? And why would they release a video?
Because they didn't get out. I think they knew better. Now, Somebody said, if you look at the truck, there's already a bullet hole in the windshield. And I think Finicum, he says, this is a comment. This is not me talking. And he said, if you knew that they were trying to kill you, wouldn't you try to get away from your family and the other people? But I don't think he had any family in there. They weren't directly related to him.
He probably sees them as family. I mean, to a certain extent. If you're willing to occupy a place with someone, it's like brothers in arms.
In any case, when you get out of your car and start running around like a fool, and you've been on TV as an armed fucking dude, and they know who you are, they know who left, they have cameras and
statements that I want to go out in
I won't spend one day in a concrete box. Something along those lines.
I'd rather they killed me or something.
Remember when they interviewed him when he was in the lawn chair?
The tarp man.
Yeah, he was like, well, what if they do come? And he's like, well,
I'm not spending any time in a concrete box. That's all I'll say.
He made a clear statement. He wanted to die.
Well, I think he didn't. He really didn't want to go to jail.
No, but he put himself between a rock and a hard place.
Well, see, here's the thing, though. But if he really wanted to fight, he had plenty of time on that ride to get that gun out. Plenty of time. If I know that if this is going to come down to a fight, bro, and I'm in a flight from the cops, not that I hope to ever be in this position, but my gun's not still going to be in my fucking pocket when I get to the end of the line. It's going to be out and ready to go. 55.
Yeah. So he's an older guy. He's not going to win against. He's not going to win against a police roadblock.
No, you're not. But that was never his point. If he came to fight, he would already have his gun the fuck out. He had plenty of time to get it out.
But there's gray areas, man. And sometimes the suicide by cop, if he reaches there a couple times,
I'm not defending the guy. I'm not defending the guy or saying it's a bad shoot. But I'm saying that dude didn't come there to fight.
Maybe halfway. Maybe he was scared. He got out of the car to go kill him, and then he saw them, and he was like, all right, maybe he got scared.
Which is the same thing as not coming to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't.
But his intention might have been to.
Yeah, well, apparently your mindset wasn't strong enough, homeboy, because you only half-assed it. And if you meant to get killed by cops, you did everything right.
Yeah.
You did everything right.
Yeah, except pull the gun out.
But up until that point, you did everything right.
But it makes me wonder. Here's the thing. It makes me wonder whether he didn't want to, and I'm spitballing here, I'm making shit up, just to be very clear. But, you may be anti-government, but you don't necessarily want to kill the cops.
Right.
And you may be thinking, I'm not going to spend time in a concrete box, but I'm also not going to actually pull my gun and shoot it. Like you say, he didn't come to fight, and I think that's probably right.
Threat of it.
And I think I think that they may not have been deliberate per se, but he it was his choice to make actions that he knew were like bad decisions if his intention was to live through this altercation.
Well, number one is running when you get pulled over, stomping on the gas. That tends to escalate.
Well, I agree. Yeah.
Things escalate very quickly.
And then getting out and walking around.
Well, when you're known to be armed, they know where you came from. They know who you are. They know your truck.
You don't go anywhere without a gun.
And the thing
is,
your
whole
even in short notice,
three. He had like three.
Oh, the line between the decision to kill yourself and to not be in that decision place is a very can be a very stark
so much
line.
easier to have the cops do it, especially if you have a tailor-made fucking situation for it.
Well, right, and
because you're going to jail, homie.
Right. Well, exactly.
You're going to jail. Like, after all that shit, even if you weren't before, you're going to jail now.
So the leaders of it called it off, and they're in jail now. And they called it off and said, everyone go home.
That's Amon Bundy and Ryan Bundy, right?
Correct. And now there's still 4 guys or 5 guys in the sanctuary still holed up there. Now it's surrounded. Now the fucking FBI's got it surrounded. You're not going in or out. I don't think but I don't think they'll last too long. I think they'll just give up.
They might be the crazy 4.
Well, one of them is definitely this big white dude. He is definitely angry and doesn't want to leave. So he doesn't care that Bundy told him to leave. He's like, no, I'm the leader now. What a weird situation it must be in there.
It definitely went better than Waco.
Yep.
Just saying.
No kids dead yet.
Well, they played it well. They really did. And people were like, oh, if it was this color person or that kind of person, it would have been different. Man, I don't give a fuck.
Well, they must be happy now because now a dude's dead.
And here's the thing. I don't take the cops for stupid. And if I don't care what color the skin is of a force that you think could be up to 150 people, well armed and organized, you think cops are just going to run up in there and start shooting people? You think they're that fucking crazy?
Yeah, no.
They're going up against a small army.
Yeah.
That is possibly maybe even as well armed as they are. They're not. I don't care what your politics are, unless you're actively threatening a population, they're not going to just run up in there and wreck you.
Right.
That's another thing.
If for nothing else, politics and sentiment aside, self-fucking preservation.
Right.
They're just not going to do it. Not until they scope that whole area. They have their people set up.
Yeah.
Like
I also
it's
think that there's a
weeks
certain
or months.
There's a certain thing that gets forgotten in these discussions about the different responses to race and stuff. That there are parallels in things like socioeconomic class and such, and that if you forget that part of it, then it definitely seems if a bunch of another race were there with the exact same circumstances, like the reasoning and everything, I think I've said in the past, like if they were black, they'd be dead, and I do think that that's probably true. But I also think that statistically speaking, like first of all, it hasn't happened with a bunch of like African Americans or anything like that. But if they were, they'd be there for slightly different reasons.
It has. What's the
recently?
No. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, but at a certain point you can't.
It was a long... No, they did get shot up.
Yeah, well, but...
was it in Oakland?
I don't know.
Do you know the story I'm talking... It was in Philadelphia or Oakland? I got memories mixing up.
They were armed and they took over a building?
Yeah, they took over a building. Or maybe it was just the house that they were staying at.
Right.
But
barricaded.
Yeah, God, was it... They had some acronym, and I want to say it started with an S. I wish I could remember, but it did happen. And then there was the guys at Wounded Knee, Leonard Peltier, those dudes. There was an occupation of Alcatraz by Native Americans, and I think all of them were met with force.
Yeah.
Granted, they were all a long time ago, too.
Yeah, it was a 70s, 60s type thing. Yeah.
And those guys weren't as well armed as these guys were claiming to be. What surprised me is when they found out that there weren't 150 guys, that it was only like 16 of them. That's when it kind of surprised me that,
why don't they just take them out?
But you also have to keep, you also have to keep in mind that the public knew they were judged.
Why are we pussyfooting around with these guys who are basically...
I think it was smart, though, for them to do that.
Oh, I think they played it smart, but eventually I came around to look, there
would have been a lot of dead people.
Put down your fucking guns and go home or this shit's going to get serious.
Yeah,
For real,
and that's what it was.
I'm done fucking around.
Last week, it was the FBI was like, all right.
That's when they said...
We're not letting you in and out anymore to go to meetings.
No, which
You're
was
a criminal.
Which was a good move. They separated him. They got him on a nice, isolated place, so if it was going to get ugly, it wasn't going to be around a population.
It went down peacefully, except this one guy had to die, so it's tragic. Man, I wish that guy wasn't dead. I don't like how the government
But you know what, though?
Dude,
is it really a fucking tragedy when a dude pretty much got what he asked for?
I'm just trying to give it the benefit of the doubt.
And he was asking for a long fucking time, too. It wasn't like he just stepped up and suddenly asked, and they could have tried tasing him. He's been playing games.
Hold on. Did you ever see Falling Down?
Yeah.
Do you think the end was a little tragic?
Well, I think the whole movie was tragic.
I'm talking about the end, though.
The dude's whole life.
I know. Well, I doubt this guy's whole life was peaches and cream.
When Robert Duvall takes him out on the bridge, and his wife's
I don't think
sad.
Robert Duvall did anything wrong, but I also think it's a little tragic because it's a little sad. It's sad that this guy got himself shot.
He's got a daughter.
Yeah, it is sad that this guy got himself shot.
No, this guy in real life.
Yeah, I know. Doesn't he have a bunch of foster kids too or something? Didn't he have a bunch of fosters?
No, we're talking
about
No,
you have to be clear. He had 11 kids.
I never heard
Are they
that.
all biologically his?
No, see, that's what I was. I thought he had. Because one of the things I heard after he came out, and again, maybe I'm mixing up memories, was that the state was talking about pulling his funding and taking the foster kids out of his house that he had there.
Which probably should.
And they said, like, the Voy Finicum, like, he's talking all the shit about the state, but a lot of his money comes from fostering kids. And that's just one story that I read.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it was true or not. I didn't vet it. But
Sure wasn't taking care of him the last few weeks.
No.
Or milking his cows.
Nobody's milking them cows.
I know someone who fosters
What about
kids.
Bessie?
The foster system's fucked up.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, that's a whole episode.
In different ways than you think.
Yeah, in every way, pretty much.
There you go.
And that's a show or two.
For the record, just to be very clear, because I haven't even mentioned his name, but the guy I know is actually fantastic, and that's what frustrates me the most because he's an awesome foster. Well, I don't think he.
Well, that's the only reason any of those kids have a chance because there are awesome people doing it.
That's what's in place in our society to help those. It's like when you work in psych,
the random awesome person.
Yeah, and in psych, it's like the overwhelming feeling is tragedy and things. We're not doing this perfectly, but this is what we've got, for those people, and it's okay. So that's where it's no reason not to advocate for fixing it, but it's like
it is what it is.
Here's what we've Paula, the organization she works for, that's what we've got for, rape victims. We've got this person to come and try to help you a little bit, and then the police come and they can be insensitive sometimes, but that's what we've got. That's our cultural protection barrier for this. Like, let's make it better, yeah, but it's this they don't have this in fucking China.
No.
In Sparta, if you had a wart, they put you in the woods as a baby. That was the end of you. Animal would eat you.
You read that thing.
You'd be lucky if you were just put in the woods.
I'd like to talk about that, but we're nearing the end here. So yeah, tomorrow, guys, any Bernie fans out there are probably fired up like me, and they're very nervous about tomorrow. It's the Iowa caucus, so it's not a primary, but it acts as one.
So just to be clear, the Iowa caucus actually functions as their primary? Kind of like, our state doesn't have a real primary. I just want to understand it.
It sends delegates to the part.
That was a big argument at one point on the internet.
Yes, I remember.
So the caucus tomorrow is the big... That's what when people talk about the Iowa primaries, they're talking about the Iowa caucus.
That's what gives the delegates to the candidates. So they're neck and neck in the last poll, and it's anyone's game at this point. Basically, the accepted knowledge is if a lot of people show up, if a record number of people go out there to caucus, which, by the way, caucus means you go to like the town hall or whatever, you stand in a room, and
I've seen this movie, Caucus, and you all stand in a room.
And they separate. They say Hillary Clinton's fans stand in this corner, and you go stand there. And then they go Bernie, and you stand in these groups. And then if if one candidate doesn't get 15% of the people in that room, they give them a chance to talk, and they have to go to one of the other two places, one of the other two candidates, or they can leave. So. That's how it's in. So O'Malley's supporters might come into play here, where he's got 2-3% of the electorate supporting him. If those people show up, they're more likely to go for Bernie, so that might help him. But it's going to be down to the wire.
Well, I do think very much that this is going to I'm tempted to say that I think if he wins it, he's going to win the whole thing, or at least the whole nomination. But I am not confident enough to say that. But I do think it leans that way. It leans towards saying if he wins this and if he loses this, I think it's going to hurt his momentum enough because Hillary's whole shtick among a good portion of people out there is she's the reasonable, not reasonable, but she's the plausible candidate
and the inevitable.
Right. Well, no, I don't even think it's inevitability because I just think that people think that Bernie can't do it. And so if he does win Iowa, he proves he can. If he doesn't, then he's kind of feeding into the he can't.
Yeah.
And so then I think a lot more people might go, well, fuck it. I guess Hillary's the one.
Right. I agree. Almost. I would say that.
I don't think, I'm not, I don't feel strongly enough to say for sure.
My opinion is that Bernie Sanders, like currently, he's going to win New Hampshire, but currently he's got about a 30% chance of winning if you take everything into account. My opinion is if he wins tomorrow in Iowa, he'll have a 50% chance of winning the nomination because it's still going to be.
But what if he loses? He'll still have a 30?
It depends. If it's a really close call, the media will report it as it was neck and neck. Like she just squeaked it out. So that won't hurt him too horribly or bad. Yes, I think he'll still have a 30. If she creams him, his overall chances will decline.
I think you're right. I think if anything, though, I think I actually the only disagreement I'll make is that if he wins, if he wins Iowa by a significant margin, not necessarily a landslide, because Hillary's gonna
like
muster
3-4% or something.
I'd say anything more than 7%.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. But
if he does, I think then we got like a 60-70% chance of Bernie.
Well, yeah, but you're not taking into account all these things like the superdelegates. Okay, there's over 1,000 Democratic superdelegates who vote for whoever they want at the convention, and 58% of them are already pledged to Hillary, and like 2 of them are pledged to Bernie.
Do you know what that means, though?
What?
Nothing. That means nothing because they can vote however they want. They've just publicly been willing to say we're going to vote for her.
They're going to vote for her.
But that doesn't mean Howard Dean had a bunch of candidates. But
They're
Howard Dean had a bunch of candidates pledged to him before he fucking fizzled and died. So,
Bill Clinton is one of them.
She hasn't let out a scream yet.
Yeah.
But no, the point just being that although it's a marker, I don't think it's as I don't say they're pledged. Well, that's it, game over for those candidates. I think any of them could switch.
Okay,
I do think that it's a marker. It's like
I think they're
clearly leaning. I think we know which way they're leaning.
I think they have deep ties.
I
with
agree.
her
I agree.
No,
I definitely agree.
So they're not going to.
Certainly, it's incredibly unlikely for him to get all of them.
Even if she loses,
I could easily see a few of them switching.
If he wins and she loses, it'll be pretty disgraceful. It'll basically be the thing America saying, we don't want you to be the president. Like, yeah, you're a very important figure in American history, and you're an impressive politician, and you're a Secretary of State.
She won't run again.
No, she's too old. She will not run again.
What do you mean too old? What?
Too old.
How old's Bernie?
74.
How old's Hillary?
69.
Have you seen
She'd be the second oldest president of all time if she gets elected.
Right, but my point being she could still run, depending on who wins this upcoming election. You're right that if she can't run again for 8 more years.
Well, in saying too old, I also mean she's done. She's sick of it. She's not going to try again.
I just was pinging on that because Bernie's clearly older than her. And so for you to go, well, she'd be too old. It's like, well, wait, then you're saying he's too old.
No, yeah, to run, not to be president. Is what I mean, because she'd have to wait 4 years and then challenge the sitting president, or else she'd have to wait 8 years and then she's 77, and that's not. People don't run when they're 77, So,
how old was McCain?
You must have been early 70s when he ran. Yeah.
Do you think Bernie will pick her as his vice president?
No.
Who do you think he's going to
pick? He needs to pick Elizabeth Warren.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
It would be so
what?
Good.
That would actually,
because if he dies in office, she'll be the president. And that I'm fine with that. She is the toughest congressperson on Wall Street that exists.
Funny story.
With him,
Elizabeth Warren, and I could be wrong, but this is my memory. I guess so. My favorite legal blog has several different people on it. It's called Pope Hat, and there's a guy named Ken White who's actually pretty famous in First Amendment circles. But he has several friends that blog with him. One of them's name is Patrick, and it was the first comment I ever left on Pope Hat because it was a conversation about Elizabeth Warren, and it was she's apparently like 1/16 of a native tribe.
Yeah,
and like people are giving her shit for like claiming something.
Yeah,
and my thing is always like, right, but they say that's enough.
Yeah.
So like I'm very confused how people can be mad at her about that.
When the population is annihilated almost, you got to count
people
who are marginally part of your race.
And that's theirs. Like that's theirs. If you were mad, you should be mad at the tribe. Don't be mad at her for like she's 100. Like as I understand it, 100% following the rules. Like they said this much,
and 1/16 isn't even that bad. It just means that like one of your grandparents or great grandparents was full Indian. So that's not too far from that influence could come down.
But why would it be her
made
fault?
You a Mischlinger in Nazi Germany if one of your grandparents
it was the old one,
Jew,
not even a drop. You know, that
a quarter.
They're basically flipping the script on the old rules of. Like, you know, because it used to be like if you had 1/16 of other races, like you weren't white anymore,
right?
You know, and so they're flipping the script and saying, you know, our race got almost annihilated. So you know what, we're going to broaden our ranks a little bit by saying that by applying it in the reverse and saying, fine, then those same people that you guys used to say were fucking.
There was a Supreme Court case in like 1917 about whether Japanese people were white. I think it ended up going no on that. It's the most absurd thing. When you read the legal brief, I thought
that they said that they were. I may be misremembering.
Well, no, eventually they did. So there were more than one case.
The rules,
of this.
Because it was all about, you know, essentially black people and Indians. It was like, well, they're not that, therefore they must be.
Right.
You know?
Ooh, it's because the legal arguments are so absurd. It's like there's
was it the Chinese or the Japanese? Because like there were a lot of Chinese people that built the railroad out there, and that's what
they were definitely not white.
The Plains tribes fought the railroad like a motherfucker.
No, it was just understood that Chinese people weren't white. It was like
the issue was
not even the Chinese
law.
people thought they were. They're like, no, we're not white.
but it was for the purposes of things like segregation. And although
I get it.
Right, but although white people in this time period were definitely like very like I question whether they would find it as problematic to say, for example, share a water fountain with a Chinese person than a black person.
What are you saying? It would be worse for them, the Chinese or the black?
I'm saying that to a white person of that time period who was following those segregation laws, that a black person would be considered by them worse.
Yeah, most of them, but there were a lot of people that specifically hated Chinese. Like a lot of people in the frontier in the West.
I've seen Kung Fu.
There weren't a lot of
when they called David
people
Kennedy
out there
China
anyway.
man.
No. So you focused if you grew up out there on the frontier, you
find someone to hate.
Yeah,
you find someone
Indians.
to hate.
Oh yeah, well that's
Well, obviously
goes without saying.
Yeah, that goes without saying.
Well, I guess
dirty savages.
I guess we gotta shut her down, guys. That's our time. But so thanks everybody, and you know. If you like it, share it, all that stuff. Help us out.
Right on.
Bye.
Peace.